Hey everyone, welcome to My Favorite Product. We've got an exciting episode for you today. We have Charlotte Wang here. Hi, Charlotte.
Hey, John, how's it going?
It's going well. Thanks so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you were telling me before we started recording that you were having a crazy day, and this is the break in your day, I guess, where we can have a little fun. I hope.
Yes.
We'll do our best. So Charlotte, thanks again for being on. I think it would help, especially knowing what we're going to talk about in terms of your favorite product, to hear a little bit about your background, what you do today for your role.
Yeah, sounds good. So, again, thanks, John, for having me. Really excited to be on the show. I have been for the last 3 years working on the online MBA program at Boston University. And so for those of you who are not familiar, so it's um, 2-year online MBA program, completely remote. And right now we're in our third year, and we have about over 2,000 students in the program right now, and we've graduated 2 cohorts of students since our inception.
Oh, that's great. And your role there is facilitating a lot of that. Is that
Yes,
what
yeah. So my role there is, working with students to facilitate student learning, ensure student engagement, and I do some teaching as well. But overall, sort of product manager for the online MBA program.
Yeah, this will be great to dive into. I'm a big fan of ed tech. Um, having taught a class as an adjunct professor, and I hope many of the folks watching this, will be able to resonate, having either gone through school or maybe they're in school now. So I think it's a great topic to cover. So yeah, with that said, what's your favorite product that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, my favorite product that I want to talk about today is actually a product that I use pretty regularly in work, and it's called YellowDig. So what YellowDig is, it's an online forum that students can engage with each other and engage with their faculty. And so, one of the ways that the challenge that we had at inception of the program is, as we're no longer dealing with students in, the 50s or hundreds range, we're dealing with thousands of students. How do we manage student engagement, incentivize student engagement, and then allow for that continuous learning and conversation? And so that when we landed on this tool, this tool really helped us, from my perspective, to students can have conversations after class about the class topics, or even anything that they see in their day-to-day work, or in their conversations post class that may remind them of the class material. It also I've seen students use as a tool to help each other. So one of the ways that we're able to scale our program is also is the peer learning piece. So obviously, one faculty member, there's a limit to what they could do, or there's limit to how many students I can interface with. So this tool has been able to sort of provide this peer support, group learning.
Huh.
And then as a sort of a teaching team, we're able to see the interaction metrics that students have in these conversations. So we're able to see how students are respond to each other's prompts, or based on what each other's prompts, what other questions and conversations have come out. And so you really built this community. I think that's really sort of what we're trying to do. It increase student engagement and allow them to really exercise a deeper level of learning. And, from the faculty perspective, it sort of decreased our time needed to answer routine questions or, routine grading. So yeah, so I think it's a really good supplement, especially even this program is all remote.
Yeah, that's great. And I do find that to be really important. And don't let me get this wrong, but I believe there's synchronous learning, which is live in person, then asynchronous, right? Which is, kind of like we're doing this over Zoom, learning the content. So is this a way to kind of bolster the asynchronous learning part, or at least the engagement part between the students and the
Yes,
teachers?
absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about scale, and taking this program to the next level. What does that mean? I mean, what is it, exponential growth, or is this just kind of, trying to grow this in a linear sense every year?
Yeah, so we have seen a lot of demand for the program even since its inception. So our initial target was, 200 students per cohort, and we actually, ended up with so much demand from such great students that we ended up accepting the first cohort of 400. And since then, every semester we've been just been growing, from 400 to 450 to 500. And I think, eventually we would like to enroll cohorts of as large as 1,000. But it really, one of the things that I'm continuously thinking about and we try to focus on is how do we, increase the students without minimizing or having any negative impact to the student engagement or quality of education, and keeping them engaged, right? Because I think you can easily feel like you are just a number as we scale, especially given it's a remote, given that most of our students are actually like the average age is 37 years old. So they have other things going on in their life as well. They have kids, they have jobs, they have the pets, so how do we make sure that people are continuously engaged with the material and engaging with each other, engage with the faculty member, as we scale. And the same thing goes on from the teaching team perspective. As a member of the teaching team, I want to make sure that I can have, make sure that the students feel that they're being taken care of, without being just a number, and without having to duplicating myself. So that's kind of the impetus for looking at these kind of tools, and
Yeah,
YellowDig has been really helpful.
that's great. And I imagine that in your role, you're the product owner for the Yellow Dig implementation at Boston University. Do I have that right?
I do have regular touch points with the YellowDig team and
Yeah,
offering feedback on, user behavior, recommendations for roadmaps, and things of that nature.
awesome. So specifically, and I really love the idea of trying to maintain the quality of the experience for this program while still scaling. And I think that's the trickiest thing. Even if you look outside of ed tech, I think that's really hard for companies to get right. So I'm interested in learning more about YellowDig and how it might do that. I guess before we go there, um, so this is a master's program, right? That you're talking, yeah.
Yes.
So an MBA program. So I teach in an MBA program at Providence College, and it's interesting because I do a lot of group work, and people say we love the group work, keep that coming. And I my response is typically, when I look back at my own experiences in school, it was more so the people I met than the education itself, or maybe just
Correct.
as much, making those connections and building those relationships. So I can see where something like YellowDig, if it's helping in those areas, can only improve the
Mhm.
quality of the experience. But curious, from your vantage point, what is YellowDig doing? What are some of the things it does really well that help you maintain that quality experience at BU?
Yeah. Well, so I find the primary way is through sort of their analytics dashboard.
Yeah.
So the analytics dashboard showcases conversation ratio. So that would be a ratio that indicates any given posting, what's the average number of students that respond to it, and then also interaction ratio. So what's the average number of conversations that respond to a response to a prompt, and then the way that it incentivizes students to do so is there's a point assigned with a posting of a new topic versus responding to a topic, And then, so those ratios we monitor at regular intervals just to see, okay, are people actually having meaningful conversations? And, every week I look through the YellowDig board and just to see, okay, what are some of the topics that students are actually talking about? It could be, something that happens in the world that reminds them of what they're learning in class, or
Mm.
it could be a question that they've had and they're getting support from the rest of the class, and that's a cue for me to say, okay, maybe that's something that I should discuss more in my office hours. So
Ah,
I do hold office hours, and I do take cue and say, okay, looks like this question there's a lot of people are confused about. Maybe it's a good cue for me to sort of to talk more. So and I also find that it helps them to feel connected to their faculty, because I will interact as well on the YellowDig board by two ways. One, I post topics that I find interesting, but I also can almost like upvote. But the actual mechanism is giving an accolade to any posting or response that I think is very meaningful or insightful. So in that way, I can curate the conversation as well.
huh.
So yeah, so I think through two ways, just to summarize. One is sort of much more metric driven. So, what's the conversation ratio? What is the interaction ratio? And, they also show, how the interaction ratio changes across the different weeks in the semester, right? It's no surprise that you see the conversation ratio kind of dropped off as people start to, they're
Yeah.
very excited at the beginning of the semester, and then at the end, they're just like bombarded with exams and capstones and homework that they just kind of dropped off. But yeah, and then the second way is sort of me engaging with a student and say, oh, that's a great question. Like, I wonder if anyone else has any, thoughts about that, or me actually, answering a question, but then, or posing a question, or offering some reflection and then asking for other feedback. So I just find both of these ways really help me to, make it more fun, more interactive. And honestly, like, I feel like I learn more from the students by looking at these messenger boards, than like maybe some of the students are learning from me, because they are really thoughtful. They really think about how, like, the course, like right now we're talking about risk management. So there's been a lot of discussions about the things happening in the world right now, and how, that factors in from different company or industries risk management behavior. So I find it also a learning opportunities for me.
That's really interesting. And I was going to go back to that point too. You mentioned it earlier, which is, and make sure I'm getting this right. You might log into YellowDig and see that there's a discussion around maybe one of the topics that was, talked about with risk management, and there's some confusion, right? Like, hey, I don't
Yes,
get this definition or this calculation.
yes.
And that, th- were you implying that that might help you craft the content for the next semester so that it's more clear or something along those lines?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. So if I see there's a lot of students saying, and that just happened a couple of weeks ago, like, a few students say, we don't really understand your calculation of this time value of money piece. Okay. So then, then I, make that an agenda item in the weekly office hour that I run. So I make sure that I explain an example, how you would solve this problem. And then, for the next round of the course, my plan is to draft a teaching note that explains really, how you would do a question like that, and just sort of put more scaffolding around this concept
Yeah.
that I probably did not do it, like, go into as deep as I should have.
Yeah. That's excellent. That's really interesting. And we talk a lot on the show about incentives, trying to get folks to use the product or hook, have that core loop of value. Um, with education, it's interesting because I do this in my class. I say, well, if you're introverted and you don't feel like engaging on the Zoom calls that we have, you can go and post on the discussion board, and that will affect your participation grade, which is a component of your overall grade. Are you doing anything like that with YellowDig, which is if you're more engaged in the product, that might affect your grade?
Absolutely. So YellowDig is an integral part of the students' grading. A
Yeah.
very small part, things like 5% or 10%. But it is divided into like the 15 weeks of the semester. So every week they're supposed to hit, let's say, 1,000 points. Um, and they could go aboard, like above that, they could go all the way to 1,500, and that will kind of save them from having to do it in the back end. So
Right.
they could sort of, accumulate ahead of time. But if they contribute more than 1,500, that will not really help them. It will just be bonus for them, but it wouldn't be recognized. Uh, so there is a different point structure for starting a new topic versus responding to someone else's topic. With if you're starting a new topic, you get more points, and if you're just responding, it's less points. However, I have found, this may go into sort of what I would like to change about this product, or how I would improve the product. And I've been talking to YellowDig about this, and we've been working proactive in trying to think, how do we refine the incentive system. Is what I'm seeing is, because there is, like, students are very enthusiastic about it. They love it. They feel it helped them to learn, help them connect with themselves and with the faculty team. But, life gets in the way. And so at the end of after maybe half point of the semester, I start seeing students posting for the sake of getting points. So for example, they're kind of like gaming the system, if you
Yeah.
will. They will be posting like, oh, I read this on Wall Street Journal, and then just a link without
Yeah.
any deeper reflection. Or they will be posing a survey question to the students, like, how are you finding week 9 material? Or is your company working a hybrid schedule, or are you fully remote? Those questions are, they're great questions, and they are worth discussing, but it doesn't really necessarily touch on sort of our learning objectives or offering any deeper level of insight. So
Yeah.
you do see that spike sort of on Saturday, because our cutoff is Saturday at 11:59 p.m. and you see a spike of these kind of posts on Saturday
Everyone has a
evening.
eureka moment at around midnight on Saturday nights, right? Everyone just, it's
Exactly.
when all the ideas flood in for some
That's
reason.
right. That's right. So
Yeah.
so that's kind of something that, I think it's a double-edged sword. Is like, we do want to award points for posts and comments, but how do we maybe adjust the monitoring of the content, or set some sort of parameters around the length of the posting to sort of curate that experience a little bit.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You want quality content versus just quantity to check a box. And has YellowDig sort of responded to that, do you think? Are they taking that into consideration?
Yes, they've been working with us, trying to, offer features. And for example, one thing that they've done was to, making sure there's a minimum character length for the posting, to ensure, using character as a proxy for the level of engagement, or whether the comment's truly meaningful. But I think, for example, there's not really much we can do to prevent students from everybody posting at 11:58 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah.
So that's still sort of, and I think the other thing is, how because you want to incentivize them, then how do you make this something that is truly something that students want to engage with, as opposed to just check the box.
Right.
Yeah, so those are the things that, if that's some of the things that I think the product can get better. And I suppose in this age of Chat GPT, like, how do we incorporate some sort of detection for contents that are written by chatbots? I don't know. I have not raised that point yet, but that's something that I do think about.
Yeah, that's difficult too. And I have found the best students that I've had in class have been the ones that had unique ideas that frankly, I don't know if ChatGPT would have come up with them. They're so sometimes they're out there, sometimes they're not even good ideas, to be honest, but they're interesting.
Yeah.
And they might fail on the business side or they might fail on the feasibility side, but at least they're different and they're thought provoking, and I really appreciate those. So hopefully, YellowDig will be able to differentiate unique ideas versus something that ChatGPT creates out of, as I've seen on the internet, the sea of sameness, as they say, right? Um, really interesting. So, third question that we always ask is, how has it changed you in your role? How has it changed your thinking using YellowDig? What are some of the things that you do differently now, having used that product, if anything?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the big learnings from this experience would be sort of uh, probably like continuous, like as a product manager, I need to engage in continuous product discovery as opposed to thinking that I know how the product is used. So, and I'll just talk a little more. Like, I think when we first, decided to use the product, we were, excited about how the students were engaging with it. Um, and we were really, just sort of were very bought into the vision, and we think that the students were going to continue to engage with the product the way that the first cohort or the second cohort has engaged with it. And I
Mm,
think over time, because we use YellowDig in across all 6 modules of the MBA program, students may be very enthusiastic and are really using it the way that we intended to in the first or second or even the third module. What we've noticed as time goes on is by like the fifth and sixth module, a larger percentage of them are treating it as check the box sort of a
yeah,
product. So
yeah,
there's a fewer interesting content. There's more the kind of, I'm going to get a Wall Street Journal headline and I'm just going to post it. Um, so I think for me, as I am thinking about how this, having been in this role for 3 years, it makes me to think about kind of how I should always question my own assumption about, basically kind of like the curse of the knowledge. I think I know how my students are using the product, but I should always check my assumptions and really observe how user engages with the product. So, you know, sort of turn that from the other perspective as product manager of the online MBA program. I think I know what my students are getting from the program or what they want from the program. But the market condition has changed. There's a lot more competitors in the market now. It's very dynamic. So how can I continue to discover what the students want? What are they really seeking when they come to an online MBA program? Um, how can I make that experience more engaging or better in any way? So I think it kind of gives me the cue of just kind of, I need to always, like, no learning is final. I should always be talking to my customers and always being questioning my assumptions. And
yeah.
anyways, yeah. So I think that's kind of something that makes me think about.
I love that. Yeah, that happens to me all the time that I did some research and then 2 years later, I'm still banking on the same research or using that as evidence for decisions. And same thing. I need to remind myself, well, is that still valid? Has the market changed? Have customer preferences changed? Um, has the quality of the product or whatever it is that we are researching changed? All those things I think are critical and a really great reminder for all of us in the product space. So love it. Well, Charlotte, I can't thank you enough for being here and talking about your experiences with YellowDig. I thought it was really interesting. I asked this of all the guests. Anything you'd like to plug on your way out here?
Yeah, I think the only thing I want to plug is, since this day and age of remote work, I would love to connect with more product managers in person, especially in the Boston area. And
Yeah,
I know that John and I have been trying to get together offline with some product managers. So
yeah.
if any of you who are watching this, and wants to learn more, what is part of a PM community in Boston, let John or I let me know, and we would love to meet you in person at one of our upcoming in-person happy hours.
Yeah, that's a great plug. And I think if you're watching this, around the time we're recording it, we're planning on a kind of a product meetup in January in the Boston area. I hope that's still the plan. I'd like it to be. We're going to try to do it quarterly, right? Isn't that what we
Yes,
had decided?
yes.
That's a great plug, by the way. Thank you. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, any product folks who are watching this, we'd love to have you that are around Boston. I'll piggyback on yours and say that Charlotte, you and I met at a Boston Product Management Association event, and they're really fun, and they're really. You're right. I mean, there's a lot of digital engagement today, and we've talked about it as your favorite product. I think it's important for people to still meet up in person too, and BPMA, Boston Product Management Association, does a good job of that. So I would encourage folks that are in the area to also to look them up, or even not in the area, because there's some content that they'll produce that's available online. It doesn't have to be from Boston. So good stuff. So Charlotte, I'll let you get back to your busy day, but really appreciate you taking time out to meet with me today and chat.
Thank you, John.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.